Welcome to Andrew's apartment. We just watched the Univision Democratic debate between Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders. Um, you can tell that Andrew's apartment is filled with all sorts of interesting things. This is his Saturn V rocket,
Which I built,
which he built with his own bare hands.
and that Eiffel Tower just came from Paris from Andrew.
There you have it.
And you're sitting under the Wright brothers plane, which is interesting with the Saturn V. 1903, the Wright Flyer, the beginning of controlled flight.
We've come a long way.
Come a long way. And there's the Avro Arrow. Talk about banding Bombardier. We don't want to lose another technological giant.
Exactly.
Anyways, we're rambling, but we're just having some fun.
Oh, and I brought this back to him from Tucson, Arizona.
And there you go, the curtains.
The curtains. And here's Andrew.
So, anyways, we're just showing we thought we'd do something for my apartment, my crazy, nutty, eclectic apartment. Michael Lexier would like this. You know, the artist that you had at the power plant.
Michael Lexier. Yes.
Um,
Russian, too.
yeah. Yeah. The Democratic debate in Miami tonight was really interesting, and as was the one in Flint on Sunday night in Michigan. Flint, of course, the place. Well, we all know Flint because of Roger and me, but of course, with the horrible water crisis that's going on there now. So, why I want to do this quick video, and this has got to be really quick, is I do think that Bernie Sanders. I do think Bernie Sanders is a fraud, and I think a lot of what he says is just crap, frankly. And I know he has all his supporters on the left, and and all these young people, but I frankly, I just don't understand the excitement. Bernie Sanders promises you a revolution he can never deliver. He promises you the New Jerusalem that'll never happen, and I just don't know why people fall for it. I'm an incrementalist. I believe in incremental change, and when he talks about a Canadian or French or British style healthcare system in the United States, that's not going to happen. Look how hard it was to get Obamacare. Look how hard that was. Look how it was so difficult, and we don't need to go there. We know how difficult that was. Hillary's right. Improve upon Obamacare, make it better, obviously. But yeah, you're not going to get a Canadian-style system in the U.S. The American society is still very resistant, very conservative. You're not going to get free college in the U.S. Obama started doing this, and it's a good thing. But let's not promise people you can't deliver on. It's a great idea, particularly in the U.S. where they have state-run colleges and universities. It's a great idea, but you can't. It's not going to happen. And don't promise things you can't deliver. Bernie keeps talking about Wall Street, Wall Street, Wall Street. It's like the Brady Bunch. Marcia, Marcia, Marcia. Wall Street, Wall Street, Every other word is Wall Street. Come on, the world's not that simple. There's a lot of corporate greed and a lot of corporate malfeasance and a lot of Bernie Madoffs there. We get it, but to blame everything on the American financial industry is silly and simplistic. Wall Street's a complex organ. It's the head. It represents the American financial industry, which is, you got to understand, not everyone's a corporate hooligan. There's a lot of people who work in the U.S. financial industry, in accountancy firms, and in law firms. Wall Street probably employs hundreds of thousands of people in the tri-state area, New Jersey, New York, Connecticut. And these are good-paying jobs, people in the support services and all sorts of different jobs, and just to have it vilified the way it is kind of silly and stupid. It's the same thing that people vilify Bay Street. And I know people who work on Bay Street and support jobs and everything, good paid jobs, and you just can't just vilify whole industries like that. It's simple and stupid. And A lot of people who support Bernie, I have to say, are kind of simple and stupid people. I know that'll irritate a lot of people, but frankly, it's true. Like, if you really believe in all that rhetoric, I mean, it is rhetoric. Uh, yeah, Wall Street, the banks, the financial industry needs to be regulated better. And some of this deregulation did happen under Hillary's husband, Bill Clinton. But yeah, just to keep vilifying it is stupid, and it doesn't make any sense. It's the same as keep going on and on about the working class. The working class, the working class, the working class. That's such an overloaded term. It's like terrorism. Who is the working class? I just find these things silly. Yes, people's wages need to be improved, and yes, the industrial sector, the Midwest, parts of Southern Ontario, which is part of the industrial Midwest, have been hollowed out through globalization, no question. And companies have moved elsewhere, and it's just not due to trade deals. Companies have moved elsewhere because they're lower wages. Yes, things should be done to keep good jobs in the U.S. and Canada, but we can't vilify other countries, China, countries in Southeast Asia, Mexico, which is the biggest villain, even amongst Democrats. Everyone wants to vilify Mexico. It's funny with this Univision debate in Miami, they're trying to tread softly on that, but so yeah, jobs have moved to Mexico because of lower wages. But I was a supporter. I think free trade. I think that NAFTA has been good for Mexico. And why do we have to condemn Mexicans to continual poverty? Like, part of this trade debate, which often happens in the union circles in Canada and the U.S., is racist. Frankly, I'm sorry. We should improve the lives of Mexicans. The lives of a lot of Mexican workers have been improved through NAFTA. Obviously not enough, but NAFTA wasn't the evil that it's portrayed to be. Yes, we got to maintain good jobs in the United States and Canada, but to vilify, and also to just have a wide swath against all these trade agreements. I'm sorry. Trade agreements are important. You need trade. You need trade. You need to trade with other countries. Yes, they have to be agreements that improve the lives of people in Mexico or Southeast Asia. I get it. The TPP is obviously got to be examined thoroughly, but yeah, just to have this wide hatred towards trade agreements is silly, and it's simplistic. And I hate simplistic stuff. I just do. It just doesn't it doesn't wash. Okay, so I think yeah, Hillary Clinton is a bit of a sleazebag. The Clintons are sleazebags. I get it. But, I think Hillary wouldn't be a bad president. I think she's got a good knowledge of the planet Earth, and I think that she's an incrementalist. She'll improve on things. She'll carry through with Obama's policies on Cuba and Iran. Opening up to Cuba and Iran are good things. She'll follow through on certain things. I think these are good things. I'm glad she's latched on to some of the, particularly Obama's domestic policies. And yeah, Bernie did vote against the auto bailout because there was also a corporate bailout of Wall Street involved in that. So I understand what again, it was a complex issue, but in a sense, he did vote against the auto bailout. And what bothers me is that Canada never gets included in these chats. Ontarians and Canadian taxpayers also bailed out Detroit, and we never seem to get any credit for that. So anyways, I can ramble on about that. I just don't. I think Bernie Sanders sells you a bill of goods, and I know everyone wants a revolution, but it's not going to happen. And you just ask Bob Rae, right? 1990, September 1990, when he came to power, everyone thought that Ontario was going to be a socialist paradise. Well, that didn't happen, and you can't blame Bob Rae. Not that he was going to turn Ontario into a socialist paradise, but the powers that be will never let you do what you want to do. There are so many. The bond gods on Wall Street or Bay Street or whatever, they won't let you do certain things. So you can do small things. So I'm an incrementalist when it comes to these things, and I don't believe in revolutions. And that segues me into the segment on the Univision thing. They run a clip of Bernie Sanders in the 80s praising Fidel Castro and Daniel Ortega. There, I agree with Bernie. I had no problems with that. Again, Castro, a revolution, never get what you want. the Cuban Revolution never turned out the way it was supposed to. It never became a paradise. But Cubans did benefit. Education, healthcare. The Cubans' lives were better. You'd rather live in Cuba than any other part of Latin America, no question. So, the lives of Cubans did benefit from the revolution, but it didn't become the socialist paradise that Castro wanted. And you can't just blame the embargo of the United States for that. There was a lot of mismanagement and a lot of stupidity that went on, cult of personality, which happens in a lot of authoritarian style governments. So you can't just blame the United States for everything that went wrong in Cuba. So, but I'm glad that Sanders defended Cuba in that interview in the 80s, and he also defended Daniel Ortega in Nicaragua, and Sandinista did do some good things in Nicaragua too. So, Ortega is now back in Nicaragua and he's a thug, but it is what it is. But and Hillary Clinton should have supported Sanders on that video, but she's playing to the vote in South Florida. So that segues me into the Nancy Reagan love affair and the whole talk about Ronald Reagan and how great Reagan was. Boy, I just don't get it. In the American media, I have nothing against Nancy Reagan and everything, and I know she probably influenced Reagan to make peace with Gorbachev and all that stuff. Whatever. I think the Americans take way too much credit for ending the Cold War. I think Gorbachev played a bigger part. But this idea, the Nancy Reagan's death and the elevation of Ronald Reagan through all these Republican debates, Reagan, Marsha. Ronald Reagan was a war criminal, par none. I mean, he was one of the great mass murderers of the late 20th century. Between 1981 and 1985, he probably was responsible for the deaths of 250,000 people in Latin America. El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, of course. He killed a lot of people. The United States financed a lot of death squads, and with the support of the likes of John McCain and others. So, Ronald Reagan is not someone that we should look up to. The guy's a killer and a murderer, and the fact that he has he's in a pantheon of lions, and he's the greatest, and oh my God, they compare him to Lincoln. Come on, Ronald Reagan compared to Lincoln? What a joke. And the American media is culpable in all of this, too. They're so stupid. And they're culpable. So, anyways, I just had to say that. Yeah. Sorry, don't praise Reagan. He was a war criminal par none. And the debate in Miami today, because the interventions in Latin America came up, and it reminded me, Reagan was responsible for a lot of death and destruction in Latin America. And and that just segues me back to a local issue, because I talk about incrementalism, because I'm a big incrementalist. I don't believe in grand visions for anything. Our transit system and our city politics in Toronto are horrible. It just, the other day there was a headline in the Star about Smart Track basically being a fraud. I've written about this. I've said this for years. John, that was a campaign slogan, and it was never going to go anywhere. And I don't know who believed it. It was too complicated and too weird. It was a good campaign slogan. It's not going anywhere. Now everyone's backtrack on stupidity track or silly track. And there's no transit planning in our city. Transit planning in Toronto is a soap opera. It's no different than Downtown Abbey. I mean, it's a soap opera, it's a joke, and we don't get anywhere. Nothing seems to happen. And I'm an incrementalist. Anyone who takes transit or subways in Toronto knows there's signal problems every day. Let's put money into the signal problems. Let's get this solved. Let's not put money into subway expansion until we can fix the subway system that we have. We should never have been expanding the subway up into Canada's Wonderland, up in Vaughan. I mean, that's a fairy tale. I mean, that's just disgusting. They don't want to expand along the Yonge Street line because it's already overcapacitated. But that's where the people live. That's where the people live, along the Yonge Street corridor. The whole system is a joke, and transit planning in our city is a joke. Our city is dysfunctional. That's dysfunctional. I do believe the province should take over the transit to TTC. I think the province should take over the city government in Toronto. The whole place is dysfunctional. And I could write more. I could speak more on this, but let's get small things. Let's get the streetcars running more efficiently. Let's get more buses on the streets, and let's not have any subway expansion until we solve the signal problems and the problems we already have on our existing subway system. And Smart Track was a campaign slogan, just like Donald Trump's Wall in Mexico is a campaign slogan. So so that's about it. And I just want to finish off because Bernie Sanders did mention the New York Times piece on Clinton and smart power in a dictator's fall. The New York Times been running pieces on the fall of Libya and Hillary's role in that. And that is the one thing that I'll go with. That's the one thing Hillary deserves a lot of scrutiny on, is the fall of Gaddafi. She was a big pusher for that war, and Libya is now a poster child and a bloody recruitment center for ISIS or Daesh or whatever you want to call it, and destabilizing Central Africa, destabilizing North Africa. Hillary pushed for the fall of Gaddafi. Canada was a big player in that too. And it's, going back to Latin America and interventions in Latin America, or we shouldn't be intervening in these places. And Donald Trump is right on that sort of thing. We should, if Saddam Hussein had been left in power, we wouldn't have had the problems we have today. We probably wouldn't have had ISIS. And Libya, if we hadn't intervened in Libya, Gaddafi had already turned to the West. I don't know why we had to get rid of him. He was a thug, but so anyways, I'm rambling. This is our first video from my apartment, and but don't believe the bill of goods that Bernie Sanders sells you. He speaks well. He makes some very good points. It's good to turn Hillary Clinton to the left and the Democratic Party to the left a bit, but it's a lot of it's just you're being sold a bill of goods, and it ain't gonna happen. When you're promised a revolution or you're promised a free lunch, don't believe it. On that note, good night and good luck.